Welcome to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I'm your host, Shade Curry, and I believe every divorced woman deserves a romantic relationship where she feels safe, loved, and cherished. You can create the most amazing life after divorce, and I will teach you how. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I have a special guest with me on Zoom, one of my clients, Busola Awoniyi. Busola has been a client for a year. I'm super excited to have her come here to tell you her story and really like what coaching can do. So, Busola, welcome. Please tell the listeners who you are and what you do.
Hi. So she said, my name is Busola Awoniyi. I am an energy consultant. I specialize in the electric and gas industries. I am a mom of 2 kids. I'm married. I live in Georgia. I'm just, really happy to be here and to be on the podcast with you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm definitely excited to share your wins. Now, first of all, you didn't come to me for divorce. Like we did general life coaching work together.
Yes.
And because you were referred by someone who was already working with me on other things. So it was kind of like, it wasn't. So a lot of the conversation is not going to be around divorce. I mean, we'll talk about how your, relationships improved, but we worked on, and I just wanted to clarify that because the podcast is Dating After Divorce, but I think everything you've achieved has been really relevant to everyone listening. Like if you are a woman, this podcast is for you. Yeah. So I wanted to start with why you came to coaching. And I pulled up your, when you booked your consultation call with me, what you wrote in there, and it actually made me smile because I was like, oh, she didn't want much at all. So I'm just going to read that out. You said you were looking for help with mental and emotional burnout, lack of motivation, making the right decisions with your life, figuring out the next steps, and having mental clarity.
Mm-hmm. So
can you tell the audience kind of what was that about? What prompted you to ask for that?
So when I wrote that, it was like I can think a last ditch effort to, I'm not asking for a lot. I just want a little bit of a relief. I was in a situation where I was burned out. I was not sleeping well. I was maybe averaging 4 hours a day. I had too many balls in the air and I was overwhelmed.
Yeah.
There was a constant feeling of being stuck. Like I couldn't move forward, kids, work, family commitments, volunteering in my community. They're just, being a sister, all of those things. I was overwhelmed. There was just too many things happening. I couldn't focus. I had constant brain chatter. I was like, maybe this lady can tell me something that will, help me, even if I get a 2% change, that would be good. That was all I was looking for. Just a little bit of relief from all the overwhelm, all the stress, all the anxiety. That was where I was.
Yeah. And I remember when we talked, one of the first things we tackled was the fact that you weren't sleeping. Like, so tell me, how much sleep have you gotten this week? Let's talk about that. A year later, how much sleep are you getting?
Can I be honest? I just woke up from a nap. So I literally am sleeping during the day in addition to sleeping at night. Yes. I sleep well. I sleep very well. I don't wake up in the middle of the night going, oh my God, what did I forget? No more waking up, in sweat going, oh my goodness, something bad is about to happen or this and that is going to go wrong. I had a lot of anxiety that I no longer have. I just go to bed and I sleep and I wake up, and if I feel like taking a nap during the day, I take a nap. I'm like a newborn baby right now.
Yeah. So good. So good. So, and I remember a lot of those symptoms showed up in the work situation you were in.
Yes.
And I really want to talk about that a little bit because there was a little bit of a journey there where you had this job that you were overqualified for. by far. And then the people around you on the job treated you like they were doing you a favor by like overworking you. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, I had gotten into this job situation that I told myself was going to be 1 year max. I have a newborn, I have a little one. I'm just going to do this for about a year until I stabilize myself. And then I'll kind of get back to that, corporate managerial role that I really wanted. And then it became 2 years and 3 years and 4 years. And the longer it took, the worse it got. I think, some of the vibes that I was putting out also was like, oh yeah, feel free to dump work on me. So yes, my workload increased and increased and increased. And this job that was supposed to be this transition thing really became the root cause of this overwhelm where I couldn't focus on my kids and I couldn't focus on my home, and other relationships were just starting to flail and and just fall by the wayside because it was like I had to give 100% to this job or, something really, really bad was going to happen. Yeah. And that was one of the things, that was the very first thing that we talked about is like, what's happening with your job? What's going on? I was overworked.
You were doing the work of two people at that point. They had like consolidated two people's jobs into yours. And then the feedback was, oh, but you're not performing.
And I didn't complain. And somehow in my mind, it was like, oh, it's okay. I'll figure it out. I'll just I'll work harder. So I would put my kids to bed and then I'll start working at 9 o'clock at night. Yes. And I didn't raise up my hand and say, hey, this is not okay. I don't want to, this is not okay. Nobody else is working, is doing the work of two people. I just thought, I don't want to make a lot of noise. I don't want to seem like a troublemaker. That was one of the first things that we talked about is I had difficulty saying no when people put stuff on me. Like, I feel like, oh, it's my responsibility. I have to do this.
Yeah. Wow. And so now what changed? Like, because I know at this point you've left that position, but before you left, because I know that was one of the things we talked about was, hey, how about we fix, like you said, the vibes that you're putting out on the job before moving to the next one? What changed on the job?
So one of the first things that we worked on was setting boundaries and saying no. So I had this meeting where they came up with this new project and blah, blah, blah. And, oh, you're going to do it. I'm going, hey, hold up. I don't have and I remember like, when you and I talked, I was like, well, I didn't know what to say. And you were like, well, you're going to set up a meeting with your boss and you're going to say, I don't have the capacity for this right now. You have me doing X and Y. And so I can't add Z to it. So I had the meeting. And, there was pushback. That was definitely push. Like, he was like, oh, I don't understand why you can't do this. And I'm like, well, as you can see, I'm doing the following things that you've asked me to do. And so and it was so uncomfortable. And one of the key things, and this is one thing that carried me through that phase, but you told me that what I'm looking for is on the other side of the discomfort.
Yes.
Because before that, I used to believe that if I felt any kind of discomfort in the situation, it meant stop. This is not a good situation. Don't talk. Don't do anything about it. But I realized that I will feel discomfort every time I say no. Yeah. And that's okay. It's, I'm not going to die if I say no, like nothing bad is going to happen. But I had this constant fear that I couldn't say, I'm sorry, I'm not available. I cannot take up that additional responsibility. I don't have the capacity to do that right now. There was just, this strong belief that I just didn't have permission to say no.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think as women and women of color, we're very much socialized to believe that from a very young age. Right? Like the little girl who speaks up has a mouth on her. She's sassy, she's bossy, she's difficult. As you get older, you hear words like difficult or intimidating, disagreeable. And those words are used to sort of create that feeling that something bad is going to happen if you say no. And if you believe it, then you don't say no. And it's like, oh, guess who's happy? when guess who's happy when women and women of color don't say no? It's not the women of color, because we feel that stress in our bodies. We feel it in trying to hold everything together and all of that overwhelm. We're not the ones that are moving forward. It's everyone else who gets to use those buttons to keep us exactly where they want, doing exactly what they want. So that the discomfort is that's the key. And that never ends. When you go to the next level, right? Like when you're getting ready to do the next thing, that discomfort is going to be there. So what was your next step at work, and where's your discomfort in work happening right now?
So the next step, after that was that I needed to set boundaries. So yes, I'm saying I can't do this. I'm not able to do that, but also make sure that I set my boundaries. And it was really like, I will no longer be answering emails at 9:00 at night. I will be available between the hours of 8 and 4. Let's figure out how to get all your work. Everything that you need from me will be within those hours, because I realized it was cutting into my sleep and my ability to function well. And so vocalizing my boundaries was very important. Yeah.
And here's a tip for anyone listening. Even if you do the work at 9 p.m. at night, do not send the email.
Exactly.
At 9 p.m. at night, please. Do not set expectations with your coworkers and your bosses that they can give you enough work to keep you up at 9 p.m. at night, or sending emails at 3 or 4 in the morning. Like, even if you choose to do that, please, for the love, send it when you wake up in the morning. At least to give the illusion that you're only working 8 to 5. So you set boundaries at work, and how did that go?
So, that, as I said, pushback. But I think once I said that, there was this understanding, like, okay, there was an understanding, like, we just can't give her 1,000,001 things, knowing fully well it cannot be completed in a workday. And the expectation was, well, she'll just work overnight and get it done. So that gave me some relief. But there were still other things, just with the environment, and, with people that I worked with, that just wasn't working well for me. And at some point I started to say, I want another job, or I want to leave this job. And being able to even say that was I remember the first time I said to you, I want to leave this job. Let's figure out how I'm going to leave this job, because I have always, thought, I needed to be a team player. I just needed to work harder to make a situation better. But understanding there were some situations I did not need to put myself in. Like, I can choose to leave this job. I can choose to leave a situation that was breaking me and just causing a lot of havoc for me mentally, and choose not to stay in that situation. I'd been working for this company for 4 years, and I just kept on thinking, I just need to try harder and harder. And I said to myself, no. And it comes from believing that I am worthy of better.
Yes.
That was something that we talked about a lot, about, especially the mental chatter that I had about worth. I attach a lot of my worth to my work. And so if I no longer worked there, or I no longer had this position, then who was I? And it just knowing that I am worthy, I was born worthy, I don't need to prove it to anybody. That was such a big relief.
Yeah, I remember one of the conversations, and I think this one was around volunteering, because you attached a lot of worth to your volunteer work and helping people. And I said, what if you didn't ever do anything again for the rest of your life? Like, can you believe that, like, you're worthy if you, like, literally did not help another human for the rest of your life? And that is actually the truth. Our worth is inherent.
Yes.
Has nothing to do with what we do, who we do it for, how we show up. Every human is 100% worthy. Do you wonder exactly how divorced women just like you are meeting eligible men who want a real relationship and a commitment? They're doing it by dating with their core values. Your core values are the GPS that lead you to the partner you've been looking for. When you use your core values on dating apps, text messages, and at social events, you will easily connect with your true match partner without chasing, settling, or wasting time with non-committal men. I have taught exactly how to do this in the 2-hour Core Values Dating Blueprint course available on my website, shadecurry.com/dating. That's SADECURRY.com/dating. You will learn exactly how to identify your core values and use them on your dating profile, how to ask the right questions via text, and how to tell the right stories on dates so that you attract the right people and repel those who aren't right for you. If you're ready to meet your true match, hop over to shadecurry.com/dating or click the link in the show notes. Now back to the episode.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned my volunteer work. So I had, apart from work and my family and my kids, I was volunteering. I had my hands in a lot of things, and helping people was one of the major ways that I identified my worth. So it meant that when somebody asked me for help, I couldn't say no. I felt like, oh no, like I have to say yes because they need me and I need to do this for them. And I found out, like, I kept on saying, I don't have time for this and I don't have time for that. But I found out the reason I didn't have time for, spending more time with my kids or taking care of myself or even getting enough sleep was I was saying yes to so many things that I really didn't want to say yes to.
Yeah. And
that was getting to that point, especially when it came to volunteering and just saying yes to helping people, was a huge, it opened up so much of my time. It was astonishing to me.
Yeah.
Because I realized that 70% of the calls I got daily outside of work was, oh, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? Can you help me with this? From, people that were close to me. And it had to, I got to a point, and we talked about this, about how my relationships should not be defined by the fact that I can do something for somebody. Yeah. I should be able to have a relationship regardless of whether I am helping them or not.
Yeah.
And I never thought about it that way. Like most of my relationships were built on my closest friendships, and my closest relationships were built on, oh, I'm the problem solver, or I'm the reliable one. I'm the one that you can call in the middle of the night to pick you up from the airport,
and everyone was calling. Once you put that out there, everyone's like, oh, she's the one.
Exactly. And everybody was calling, and I was exhausted.
Yeah. So when you think about that, and I know that, like, you let go of a lot of things. I remember us having conversations. I'm going to let go of that, say no to that. How is that showing up in your life today? Like, are you doing any volunteer work currently? And how do you feel about what you're doing?
So right now I'm not doing the usual volunteer work that I do, which is usually, driving and picking up meals and things like that. So what I've done is just very focused. I'm donating books to some local organizations that serve children who, otherwise may not have a lot of access to materials. So that I choose to do once a month, and that's it. And I just, I call the organization, this is what I'm doing this month, and I hand it over. And so there's I'm not putting this constant pressure on myself to weekly show up somewhere to do something that I don't really want to do or have no desire to do going forward.
Yeah. I remember when we had the conversation, I think just your spiritual background informed saying yes to people who were in need. And when we kind of dissected, what's the spiritual back and what does it really mean to say yes? We came to the conclusion that actually what is healthier is to say yes ahead of time versus saying yes on the spot. So at the beginning of a month, decide, who do I want to help? How do I want to help them? How much help do I want to give? And then that frees you up to say no to everything else. It's like, oh no, I already decided. I decided how much money I was going to give. I decided who I was going to help. Because I think it's the feeling of like, oh, this need is in my face. I have to jump to help versus I am a helper. I decide intentionally and I'm constantly moving through life helping as I choose.
And that has helped me significantly. It actually has redefined a number of my close relationships, because once I started saying, I'm not available, I cannot help with this, and setting the boundaries, like, you and I want us to be close, but I want us to actually, do stuff together. And it's not just I am the person that you call when you need help situation. And not everybody liked, I mean, I had some people who were really upset, like, what do you mean you're not going to help me? But I look in hindsight now, and what I can see is that basically those relationships have changed positively. I have closer relationships with the people that are closest to me, because I've been able to redefine those relationships. It's no longer I am the one that you call when you need help. It's, let's really get to know each other. And I want to be there for you, but I don't always have to be that person.
Yeah.
And I want to say you gave me permission, but it was like at some point you said to me, it is okay for you to say no.
Yes. Yeah. But
and I had to realize
it out. It's okay for you to, it's the statement, I love you and no. And you were actually you weren't really doing either one. You were just saying yes to whatever they asked you to do, versus what you're doing now, which is, how can I connect with this person? How can I show them that I love them? How can I spend time with them? How can I get to know them? And then saying no to the things you don't want to do.
And I have to, one thing I want to point out, and I wonder if there are other people like me out there who think their love language is helping. Like the way that I tell somebody I love them is to do stuff for them and run errands and, run around and that stuff. But I realized that, yes, I wasn't really saying I love you. I wasn't expressing myself in loving ways. I was using the helping as, oh, this is how I show you that I love you. And for some people, it was actually going over their heads. They just felt like, oh, you're just the person that I call when I need this. It wasn't translating into she's doing this because she loves me. So now I will clearly say, I love you. I care about you. I know you're going through stuff that I cannot help with at the moment, but I believe in you and I know that you will figure it out.
Yeah.
And that was more impactful than me trying to solve a problem for them where, I think I'm signaling I love you, but you're not quite getting it.
Yeah. And sometimes acts of service can be a way to, just like gifts, they can be a way to hide from intimacy. The way some parents will buy their kids gifts, but never spend any time with them because of the vulnerability and the intimacy that they're running away from. Service and doing things for can also be the same thing.
Yes.
We don't want to get into the nitty gritty of like really just showing our hearts. So it's like, and sometimes it's just what we're used to. We over index on what's easy and what we know we can succeed at. Yeah. All right. So what work do you do now? Like, I know we kind of went through your work situation. You eventually left.
Yes.
And
so I started my own company. I'm doing energy consulting. That was the field that I was working in before. So I started my own firm, and I'm really excited about that. Because the ability to put out my own work as my own work and to do it confidently and to provide value to my clients is very important for me, and to be able to create the environment that I want. So I am using that as an opportunity to create the life that I want. And that is what's so important to me.
Yeah. If you were to talk to yourself a year ago, like today, you're like running your own company, serving your own clients the way you want and making a difference. Because I know a lot of your work has to do with human development.
Yes, I work in a number of developing countries. So electricity and gas development in developing countries.
Yeah. And so you're doing that work now. If you were to tell yourself something a year ago, what would you say to her? Because she was like in a different space completely.
I was just living day by day. I just wanted to wake up one morning and make it through that day. And I would say to her, like, yes, you needed to stop and say, what do I need to do? Yeah. I need to find a solution. What do I need to do different? Because I kept on, it's like when you're on a wheel, when you're in a cycle where you just wake up and you work and you wake up and you work and you wake up and you work, it's at some point you have to just stop and say, okay, is this the life that I want? And if the answer is no, then change it.
You know, what you described as that wheel, like I remember being on that wheel, like towards the end of my marriage. Like it's not unique to a toxic work situation. It shows up, that numbness and like autopilot and like just survival mode. Anytime we're in a toxic situation, it's literally that's what shows up. And like you said, it's like we have to like mentally break out of whatever constraints have been put on our minds and on our thoughts. Yeah. So good. So good. I'm really, really excited. I'm excited for the work that you're doing. I wanted to talk about your Paris trip.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, go ahead.
So you had been thinking about going to Paris for like how many years? Like it was something you wanted to do for a long time.
So yes, so I've been married 7.5 years. And so we were supposed to go to Paris for our honeymoon 7.5 years ago. And tragically, my father passed away right before the wedding. So we went from planning a wedding to planning a funeral. So there was things changed completely. And I've been talking about this, having this romantic trip to Paris for years. And somehow it was just one of those things that was like, but we can't do it. We have 2 kids. We can't do it. We have jobs. We don't have that much vacation, blah, blah, blah. The excuses just kept on piling up. And I completely let go of this dream. Like someday, someday, maybe after I retire, I will do this. And then, we talked about, so one of the things that you do, that you challenge my thought process, is that you will say, so why can't you do it now? I will say, oh, but I can't do that because of this, because of that. She was like, but I don't understand why you can't do that now.
No.
So when I talked about this to you, you were like, why can't you do it now? And I'm thinking, oh, but I came up because you said, if you really wanted to, you would figure out how to get it done. And yes, my husband and I went to Paris for 6 days away from our very little children.
Yes.
And everybody
and the children didn't die. I want to note.
Thank you. The children had a great week. They didn't miss us. They were with their aunts. They were spoiled rotten. I never imagined I could travel that long without my children. Like it was just I was just like, oh, maybe when they grow up, then I'll do this. But yes, it was incredibly magical. It was everything that I wanted. It was like, so one of the things that I have experienced in the past year is I am leaving my dreams. Like I'm actually living in my, the things that I thought I'm going to do maybe in 10 years. I am doing them now. Like I kept on postponing things in my life. Like, okay, maybe when things get a little bit better, I will do this. And you always said, wait, I don't understand why you can't do that now. One of the other things we talked about was connection. Like, why can't you connect with people you want to connect with now?
That's a fun one. Let's talk about that, because it was one of your goals. And I think we always did like a little check-in, like ever so often I would like recalibrate your goals based on progress that you've made. And I just be like, okay, well, what do you want to achieve now that this is done? And one of the ones you brought up, we didn't start it initially, but kind of, I think after you quit work, somewhere there, you're like, oh, I want to connect more with my daughters, right? And we talked about it, what that looked like for you, etc. And then you were going to, I don't know if it was like you were going to plan something or get a book, or you were going to buy some materials.
It was
like just to connect. Well, I was like, why don't you connect with them tonight?
Yes. So with the whole everything with just not being overwhelmed for the past couple of years, I felt like we were going through a cycle. I would get them up in the morning, take them to school, it was like auto mom, I was on this automatic pilot situation. And I feel like, oh, I would love to just spend time with them and just sit and just cuddle and hug and all these things. And so my over planning brain is always like, oh, we need a book for that, right? We need a program for that. I need to go online and find a program that says, how do you connect with your children? And I said something to that effect to you. And you said, well, why can't you connect with them tonight? Like when you put them to bed tonight, why can't you do that? And I was like, oh, I guess it was, honestly, I didn't think about it that way. I'm an over planner. I overanalyze. And I need a book for everything. And when you said that, it was like, okay.
Yeah. And that comes from the part of our brain that always thinks, I need to make sure I do it right. It needs to be perfect.
Yes.
It needs to be perfect. So like even, and it's interesting, the thought of it being perfect gives the brain so much joy that it completely neglects the fact that it hasn't done the thing at all. It's like, oh, no. But it's going to be perfect when I eventually do it, and gets its joy and dopamine from basically from the fantasy of perfection versus the messiness of the now. Like what can we do right now?
And is that perfectionism ties into, over planning and procrastinating, basically saying, oh, but it needs to be perfect. I need to say the perfect words to them and do all this cuddling in the perfect way. And that was another thing that we worked on. Like if you had said to me prior to me starting to work with you that I had that thinking, that perfectionist thinking, I would have said no. I said, oh no, like no, it doesn't exist. But when I looked at it, I was like, that is why. And you said to me that, first of all, it is okay for it to be imperfect. It is okay for it to be 70% done or 50% done.
Mm-hmm.
It is okay. Like nothing bad will happen if it is not perfect.
That's so true. And then you took a trip with your daughter, like out of that growth and, of connecting and being more present with them. Tell us about the trip.
So this was another dream that I thought was years, it's going to take years for it to happen. I've always wanted to take a trip with my daughters individually, more like a special, trip with mom to something they wanted to do. And after we talked about, why can't you do this now? I asked my daughter, I said, I would like to take a trip with you. This is my older daughter who's 7. And I said, what would you like to do? Where would you like to go? Something you've never done before. And oh my goodness, I was expecting, I want to go to Disney World. I was going to Florida. My daughter, who's very adventurous, said, I've never been skiing before. I would like to go skiing.
Wow.
And of course, by then I had promised her, I said, anywhere that you want to go, we will make it happen. And when she said skiing, I'm like, okay, I don't like cold places and I do not ski, but we will figure out how to get you skiing. So I did. We planned a trip to Colorado. She took a wonderful ski class that she loved. My child is definitely a cold climate baby. She loved it.
Wow.
And it was a great trip for us. She felt very special. And as I said, this was something that I didn't think we would do for a few more years at least. Like, I have to plan and over plan and figure it all out. And all of this was fine in about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And
this is the whole premise of coaching, because sometimes people are like, well, the coach is just going to kind of tell you what to do, or like the coach is like an accountability. It's not really an accountability partner. What we try to do is take the limits off. And most of the time you don't realize the limits that you have on, or the blinders that you have on. But like once the blinders are off, all the decisions are yours, and they almost come automatically. Once the blinders are off, once you see the thinking that's creating the results you don't want.
So what I did, the result that I saw was that from understanding the impact of that perfectionist thinking and over analyzing stuff, what I found out was that I started to take action. So all these things that I, have told myself was going to take years and I couldn't do it because of this or that, I was excited about it and I was taking action. I'm like, yes, why can't I do it? It was like, if Shadi said I could do it, she's asking me why I can't, like I couldn't come up with an excuse why I couldn't. Right? I was like, okay, no, I can do it. And one of the things that was prominent in my mind that was actually stopping me from being focused and taking action was mind chatter. I had a lot of mind chatter about different things. And we talked about that constantly about, you can't allow that mind chatter to overwhelm you, because that's what happens. It overwhelms you and then you feel paralyzed and stuck. But once you're able to get that, you talk back to it, like, no, like you question it.
Yeah.
Why can't I take a trip with my daughter? Why can't I go to Paris if I want to? Why can I not live my dream? And once I started asking those questions, it was like, oh, I can. I actually can do this stuff, I can do hard things and it's okay.
Yes, 100%. I mean, it's for everyone, whatever those things are will be different. But an exercise that like really helps you, kind of see that is to constantly bring up, what do you want? Allowing yourself to own what you want, giving yourself permission to even look at it, to even look at what you want. And a lot of times when we're on autopilot, our dreams are like, we've shoved them to the side. We're not looking at them, because sometimes when we look at them, they bring us pain that we're not living in them. We're not moving towards them. Bringing them to the forefront and being willing to even feel the disappointment that, okay, I didn't do it so far. What can I do about it now? Can make such a difference. Yeah.
I think that is a really solid point. I couldn't think about the future in the state that I was in, because in burnout state, you're in survivor mode. And so thinking about the future, you're right, it brings you pain because you're thinking about all these things that you have dreamt of doing, that you've always wanted to do, that you will never do. And you're just like, I just don't want to think about that right now. And you're constantly in that survival mode, and you're not even able to take care of yourself. That was one of the other things that we talked about, that I needed. It was okay for me to take care of myself before I took care of other people.
Yes.
I never believed that. That was not something that was ever in my psyche. I was always help other people first. And then whatever you have left, whatever little you have left, then, you kind of cobble your way through your day.
Yeah.
And we talked about self-care. Like the idea of self-care was foreign to me. Like, what? You mean like every day? Like literally take care of myself first before I 100%. Tend to anybody else. It was like that part, was, see, when you're doing coaching, when, working with you, was my thought process was constantly being challenged. Things that I knew to be true were all of a sudden like, oh, maybe they're not true. Like when you talked about removing those boundaries that I had created in my mind, things that I believed were absolutely true, anywhere, any day, anywhere. I now understood that those things were not, like I can take care of myself and be fully, it's okay. It wasn't selfish for me to take care of myself. It wasn't selfish to get sleep,
And the result, and it's obvious that the people you love the most are enjoying the fruits of quote unquote selfishness.
Yeah.
You're a much better mom.
Right? Yeah. I think my children will agree.
Yeah, I love that. And then just a last question I wanted to ask, kind of like around anxiety, was if on a scale of like 0, which is like no anxiety at all, to 10, which is like the highest level of anxiety, where was your anxiety a year ago?
I was at maybe 11. Because, and I didn't tell you this, I was convinced I was actually having a heart attack at some point. I was feeling pain in my chest. My breathing was shallow. I was like, I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. And I remember calling my doctor, like, I think something bad is happening, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, okay, can you breathe? Like, can you stand up? Like, just trying to figure out what's going on. And she was saying, okay, maybe you had some kind of arrhythmia. They got me into the office. I ran tests for over a week with a cardiologist trying to figure out if I actually had some kind of heart problems. It was anxiety. I was just in a state of constant daily anxiety and fear about everything. And it's a very stressful situation to be in, because you can't sleep. I would wake up in the middle of the night and just be afraid about something. And now, there are days I'm like, should I be worried about something?
So what is that a 2?
I am definitely, yes, I would say about a 2. Like I'm honestly like, there must be something I should be worried about right now.
Something. Things cannot be this safe and calm. Yes, they can. They can.
I mean, I have actually been in therapy for anxiety for years. I have had cognitive behavior therapy for over 5 years just for anxiety. And for me, over time, especially, once I had kids, it felt like it multiplied because now I had two other people to worry about. So I never believed that anxiety could be this low. I thought that I had to wait to be anxious and then control it. It never occurred to me that I didn't have to have the anxiety in the first place.
Yes, 100%. Oh my gosh, I love it. I'm so excited for you. Like, this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning, right? You've only done coaching for like a year. Something my coach said on her podcast, and she said, what if your life right now was just a 2?
Wow.
What if where you are with like working for yourself, running your own company, connecting with your kids, having your marriage like blossom, all of this, what if this is a 2? And you're just getting ready to go to an 8?
That's awesome. Like and I've said this to you, like, I am so happy. I've said this to you multiple times in the past few months. Like, I am so happy right now. Like, I'm serious. Like, if nothing else happened, I'm good.
Yeah, but think about
that's what you said to me.
How good can it get? How good can it get? Like, what if we found, instead of thinking, because I think if you have anxiety from whether it's childhood or things that happened after or whatever the source is, we tend to look for like, well, let's make sure nothing bad is going to happen. Let's make sure nothing bad is going to happen. Something bad is probably coming around the corner. And I definitely resonate with that and have experienced, and my brain sometimes will try to go all the way back there. But what you want to do is like, just try to redirect it. What if something good is coming around the corner?
Yes.
Right? How good can this get? Like, just let's do an experiment to see if it can get, 2 degrees better than it is now. And it just changes our whole outlook on life and what's possible for us. So, Busola, thank you so much for sharing your story. I know that this is going to be an inspiration to so many women. A lot of what you've experienced and described has happened to my clients, to me, going through the divorce process. So I know that like this is so relevant. All of it is so relevant. If you just wanted to give a word of advice, just kind of like your own new philosophy of life that you're developing, things that you think women need to hear about this mid-stage of life, getting out of these situations, please just share whatever wisdom you have.
So for me, I think I'm going to turn 43 this year. And I think somehow in the back of my mind, I thought that things just couldn't change. Like, I've kind of missed the boat on certain things. So it's not too late, whatever age that you are, it is not too late to make the change that you want to see in your life. One thing that I believe now without any doubt is that I am worthy of every good thing in my life. And so I no longer have to work hard, to prove that I'm worthy of it.
Yes.
And that is so important. Like, it is okay that you are that woman who owns her own business, or that woman who's just happy. We seem to have a culture that glorifies struggle. Like, oh yeah, I pulled myself by my bootstraps and I went through 1,000,001 things. But after you've gone all through that, it is okay for you to be the woman who doesn't have to struggle anymore, to truly have the life that you want. And so I just want to encourage the people that are listening that it is not too late. You are worthy of the good things in your life. And yes, you can have the life that you want.
100%. I love it. Busola, thank you. I think in the show notes, we're going to link up your social media and your company links. If anyone is in the energy industry and wants to connect with you, I think you sound like you are really getting ready to just take off in that area. So if anyone's listening and you're in the energy space, reach out to Busola, connect with her. She's on LinkedIn, and we'll have all that hooked up in the show notes. Everyone, I want to thank you for your time and attention today, and I will see you next time. Thanks for listening today. If you are ready to get married after divorce, I want to invite you to download my free 8-video training specifically designed to help divorced women date with ease and get married again. Head over to SadeCurry.com to get started. That's SadeCurry.com.
CURRY.com. I'll see you inside.